Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Yusuf from Ronald, and again, I'll be a host this evening. This happens to be our 10th webinar in our series, so it's kind of quite perfect that it coincides with a women in volleyball topic being discussed this evening. I hope you are all keeping safe wherever you are. Welcome to everyone across the Cape Town region as well as South Africa, and I see we have some people that tune in from Uganda and other parts of Africa. We have a very exciting and long overdue topic up for discussion this evening, and I think by now everyone knows what that topic is. Women in volleyball. We are talking about that this evening. Our facilitator this evening will be Albin Kluter. I have shared the program with everyone on the screen at the moment, so you can see it there. But before we continue, we just had some sad happenings over the last 2 weeks or so. Two of our stalwart volleyball administrators passed away, that being Estelle Williams and Lana George last week. So I'm just going to ask everyone just to take a moment to remember Estelle Williams and Lana. Sadly passed away recently. These are two ladies that have contributed to the game of volleyball and communities in their own special ways. So I'm just going to play a little song in tribute to these two ladies.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for this computer to behave here. Come on.
Already beautiful, Yusuf.
Sorry?
It's already beautiful.
Yeah, just easier. It is. Okay, just stay with me. I'm just waiting for this computer to respond here. Come on. Okay, thank you. Meeting's underway. Just one final request, and I think by now a lot of us are familiar with this, just while the speakers are speaking, just to avoid any unnecessary background noise, okay? So without any further ado, I hand you over to Elmi.
Thank you, Yusuf.
Elmi. Elmi.
I'm here, Yusuf. It's part of the presentation. Can you see the video, Yusuf?
I can see it.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I don't know about you, but watching that always gives me goosebumps. It is, of course, important that from time to time we draw inspiration and encouragement from motivational resources such as this one, and remind ourselves that we can indeed dream crazy. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Tonight, we zoom in. Guys, do you get that? We zoom in on the crazy, brave, and strong women of volleyball, specifically in the Western Cape. They will share with us some insights from their perspectives and as players and leaders of the sport. And really tonight is just about getting the conversation started. Because as some wise person once said, deep conversations with the right people are priceless. But before we get there, we will be addressed by two phenomenal strong women who will certainly inspire us with their own stories about breaking barriers and changing landscapes. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Elmin Kluter, and I'm honored to facilitate the conversation tonight. We are also honoring dearly departed two souls, and specifically the reason why you'd see some of us wearing hats and headgear is because we lost a tremendous woman in Estelle Williams, who was, you know, a legend within the volleyball fraternity herself. I heeded Jan's request, actually, listening to the funeral service last week, where she shared a little bit of some insight to her mother's true nature, her joyful side. And we just thought it would be a good idea to remember her spirit in this way. Rest in peace, Estelle, and may you have a joyful and a joy in heaven. We will definitely miss you at this evening's webinar, as you definitely would have been part of the conversation. So just before we get going, guys, I'd like to thank the Western Cape Volleyball Federation in conjunction with the Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport for providing the platform for the webinars. For many of us, Western Cape Volleyball Webinar Wednesdays have become a regular on our calendars. And for those who did not join previous occasions, I encourage you to join our Wednesday Eve get-togethers going ahead or going forward. I promise you won't regret it. I especially want to give a loud shout out to our host, Yusuf Groenemald, who has been championing the web series and also patiently been giving all of us technical and other support when we require it. He's a true champion for the growth of volleyball in our province. I know he doesn't like to be singled out, and he will always say, Mina, it's a team effort. But you see, I appreciate you always go 10 times the extra mile for us. Thank you, colleague. Now, just a reminder to keep the chat box alive with comments and questions you may have for any of our participants tonight, which we will address after the panel discussions, of course. But now, to the business of the evening, guys. Our first speaker is aching to get going. So without any delay, let me hand over to the founder and MD of sports brand Fika, who will share with us her story. Ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Rahma Jappi.
Wow, thank you for that amazing intro, Elmin. Good evening, everybody. I'm sure everybody can hear me loud and clear. Elmin, if you do lose me, because reception in the overall area is very bad, I got my phone here with me, then you just WhatsApp me, okay?
Not a
because
problem.
it has happened in the past. My name is Rahma Jappi. I've been in business for, thank you. I've been in business for over 15 years. I initially started out running a campus lifestyle model, which is to manage institutional brands through retail. Still very unique to us, even though it's happening in small bits throughout the country. To date, we have 10 stores, which is based at schools, universities, and technicons. And after our launch in 2006, 7 years later, I launched the sport brand Fika as both a business and a brand. So I have two business units within the broader scope of the business, which runs parallel to each other. The one never goes without the other. And so in our stores, we have student uniform, corporate uniform, and accessories, and then obviously sport apparel under our FICA sports brand. We launched FICA at the University of the Western Cape because that's where we also launched our very first store, our campus lifestyle store. And so over the years, I say this over and over again through both men and women, and especially, I'm not sure if I can call you out, Almin, especially through you as well. Your support over the years has been tremendous. And because of that, UWC has always played a pivotal role in the development of the brand. They have greatly aided the brand in terms of where it is today. Today, the brand is doing so well outside of the stores, which I call my external environment. We have now branched out into community sports clubs, sport bodies, corporates, Western Province Athletics, VP Volleyball as well, and others. There are many other bodies that we also interacted with over the years, whether it's for partnerships. But the greatest achievement to date has been our contract that we signed with SA Rugby in December. It was a 3-year contract to become their supplier. That was a big milestone for me and for the business. It kind of just put us on another platform, you know. So as much as this seems like an overnight success, it's really, really far from it. As an entrepreneur, I've had my fair share of discrimination by operating in a male-dominated industry. Up until today, when clients ask to speak to the boss, they are completely bewildered on introduction of myself and would often comment, you know, are you really the boss? I have ruffled a few feathers down the line with my direct approach in the boardroom meetings on things which I don't agree with. But then again, there is a name for that as well. I'm not sure I can say it, please don't feel offended. She's full of shit. So, you know, this, as a woman, there's always a tag that we have to carry. And it's always a negative one. And I'm okay with that because I can deal with it, you know, and not many other women is perhaps that brave, you know, to come forward like myself. So today the brand has supported over 300 sportspersons across various sports codes. Volleyball was actually my first call for sport within the industry. And from there onwards, I was exposed to, you know, once I got into that space, it was here where I was exposed to the challenges that our sportsperson have to face and endure on a daily basis. Just because of some rules and regulations that forces them to conform to sporting attire, which, you know, they can barely afford. I've made it the FICA brand's mission to uplift any sports person that shows potential to reach the top. Because, you know, guys, what you find is the big guns, as I call it, will only give you their support once you have actually reached your pinnacle of success. So what happens to the people on the ground, really? And I would like to see FICA take a bigger chunk of that, because that is actually where we want to be. Let the others maar laat hulle maar vlieg met hulle hoë name, as I call it. So there's just one thing that I also want to touch on before I go on to the topics. I feel it is something important to consider, and that is to say that, you know what, I stand as an equalist and I'm not necessarily a feminist. There are many men who advocate for women, and there are many women who advocate for men. It goes both ways. You know, it's a team effort. I would love to see equal promotion, salaries, and opportunity. I think we are making great strides towards this. And if we keep the ball rolling, I think it will continue to progress towards a more equal standing in both sport and the workplace. Being an entrepreneur is a challenge in itself. Being a woman in sport is not a level playing field. Women have to go through many obstacles, you know, to succeed in an industry that is gender biased. Women do lead, I mean, no doubt about that. They are competitive and they have much to offer the changing face of sport. Yet globally, women remain underrepresented as coaches, administrators, officials, at all levels of competition, basically. That is my personal experience with people that I've been interacting within the sporting fraternity. The patriarchal culture of sport and the marginalization of women in the sport workplace leaves women feeling unsupported and really isolated and suffocated. You know, you women represent, I mean, I read up that women represent 49% of the global population, yet we are treated as the minority group in sports. However, this minority group refuses to remain or be silenced and are making themselves more visible. The status quo needs to be challenged with disruption and change at the systematic level. That's my opinion. Also, my personal view on this is that there are not enough leadership opportunities for women across all sectors. And this does not only extend to the sport industry, but in business as a whole, because I'm a business person first and foremost. We all have a responsibility to provide a supportive environment for women to be successful in all facets of their lives, be it work, home, family, health, and well-being. In my space, I have made it my duty to empower my colleagues through training and development, especially, you know, on a management level. 90% of my staff is actually women. I would first give, no matter how small I can contribute to empowering women, I do that in my space. We are, like I said, 90% women, and I think we have like 3 males who act like women most of the time. I think the men is the ladies and the ladies is the men. So for me, it's very important to, you know, once again, to create strong, independent women. And so I also love to surround myself with like-minded people. I also raised 2 girls who are now branching out into women. And when it's time to leave home, I do not want to worry about them. The fact that they're unable to stand firm on their own. It's important for me that they also know their worth and their purpose in life, and to give back meaningfully during their journeys on this earth. My purpose in life, I have defined the day I launched my brand, which was 7 years ago in 2012. And regardless of, and I did that, create a more unified environment and opportunity for women to learn leadership skills earlier in their careers already. Any organization should strive to create a working environment, you know, that is inclusive, encouraging, and safe. It is vital that we as women give our opinions, you know, take up space in the boardroom and the field, and give input on higher levels in the workplace. If not, you know, men will continue to take up these spaces and be the decision makers. You cannot influence a decision if you are not willing. My mond is droog. Sorry for that. Let me continue. If not, men will continue to take up these spaces and the decision makers, and will be the decision makers. You cannot influence a decision if you are not willing to speak on the decision. Women need to sit at the table, sit in the front rows, make your voice to be heard, and voice your opinions. Even argue and challenge someone's opinion. Make damn sure that you are heard very loud and very clear. Almina, I applaud the organization for understanding the gap that there is within the fraternity. You guys are starting to talk. I mean, this is obviously not the first time that a webinar of this nature has been done. Thank you once again for the opportunity. I will surely be more active in the ones to come. But we should create a position for people to enforce talking about our issues, about challenges that young girls especially face. The more we as society talk about the issues, the more we can combat them. This is not a blame game, guys. I'm not saying that at all. This is based all on my experiences in not even 15 years, in the last 7 years that I've become involved in sport. Everyone is at fault for the norms, even myself. Some men need to be conscious of considering female opinions just as much as females need to be conscious of learning or leaning into these environments or into their environment. That is basically, you know, what my talk is about and my experience is about. And as a woman in business, I continue to learn and try in my own sweet way, in my small way, to make a change And I'm hoping as long as God gives me the space and the time to do so, I will forge ahead. I love ending off my talks with quotes. Quotes gives me starts my day in the morning and ends my day in the evening. And that is that the only time you should ever look back is to see how far you have come. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope you found what I spoke about useful, and that you can actually, take something from it. Thanks, Almin.
Oh, indeed, Rahma. Thank you so much for that. Just some perhaps some points for us to take away from your speech is that you mentioned that your industry, particularly the business industry, is still very male dominated. You also mentioned that especially as far as the uniforms are concerned, that there's sometimes still unfair expectations of what females should wear. And later on in our panel discussions, I'm sure that will come out as far as volleyball is concerned. Also, you spoke of the importance of supporting smaller codes such as volleyball. So corporates should definitely look at supporting smaller codes, because that's the only way that they can also achieve certain things that they want to. Also, the need to see equal opportunities for women and men, and girls and boys, I would even say. And then you also spoke of the responsibility to provide spaces for women where they can grow, and then an environment that's inclusive. Then, lastly, you basically focused on women to be part of the decision-making processes to ensure better futures for the girl child. Thank you so much, Rahma. I enjoyed that insightful information and what you shared. We thank you for availing yourself, to be here tonight, and for your ongoing support towards volleyball. And we wish you well with all your future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate
it. Guys, our keynote address comes from none other than Mrs. Elam Groenewald, who is no stranger to many of us, in attendance here. I just want to share, Yusuf, screen share quickly so that I can make sure we bring her up. And there she is. Elam Groenewald is currently the Marty Sport Chief Director. She joined Stellenbosch University in 2014 from the University of the Western Cape, where she held the position of Director of Sport for more than a decade. Elam is qualified with an honours degree in business administration and a master's degree in sports management. During 2016, Mrs. Groenewald became the first female executive council member for the South African Rugby Federation. She served a number of sports organizations during her 30+ years involvement in sport, and she continues to occupy a few representative roles within the higher education and other sporting environments. Several special recognition for Elam include the University of the Western Cape Chancellor's Award in 2017. That's really one of the top level awards that anyone gets recognized with. And in 2019, she received the Ministerial Award by the then Minister of Sport and Recreation for her contribution towards sport in South Africa and breaking the boundaries with her leadership involvement in rugby. Her career interests are in business management, sports management, leadership and governance, and she has a key interest in the areas of commercialization, media, and communication. Her motto is to live, laugh, and love. Everyone, my friend and mentor, a woman whom I have tremendous respect for, Mrs. Elam Groenewald, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Klute, for that wonderful introduction. But you forgot something very important. I am no stranger to volleyball. So you should have ended off with that sentence. But that's a wonderful introduction. And so Ms. Klute was very clear telling me that I need to speak about breaking barriers and being a change agent, which I believe is a wonderful topic. And what I'm going to do tonight is really to talk about my own experience and bring up some of the key things that I hope you can take away this evening. Mr. Lut Groenewald, the President, and the rest of his Executive Committee, Mrs. Rahma Jappi, our guest speaker, MD and owner of FICA, a woman who has supported us tremendously over the last couple of years, Ms. Yalmin Klute, our facilitator, Mr. Yusuf Groenewald, our host, our panelists. I'm looking forward to share the platform with you a bit later, our participants, attendees, wherever you are connecting from. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. Thank you first and foremost to Western Province, the Western Cape. I need to get used to the new name, to Western Cape Volleyball Association for asking me to be your keynote speaker this evening. And I also want to thank the rest of the panelists for joining us, because in your way, you have achieved so much, and you've become the women that have contributed over the years to the development of the game of volleyball. Last week, when a journalist asked me about my involvement in volleyball and why I left volleyball, in particular, the National Executive Committee of Volleyball South Africa, I didn't hesitate to be clear, because he asked me about whether this was as a result of a particular individual being Mr. Tabiredi, and I said to him, absolutely not, because Mr. Tabiredi is not volleyball. And one of the reasons why I left is because I didn't see myself to be associated with a leadership group that did not want to be held accountable for the growth and the development of the game. And there are very key things, key ingredients necessary for an organization to be held accountable. You need to have strong leadership with a vision. That means a long-term plan that speaks about the game at all levels. You need to make sure that you generate the necessary resources. And most importantly is to have a very strong governance system in place. Because if we don't implement all of these key ingredients, the organization will simply not be successful. For me, the status quo unfortunately remains. And so when we talk this evening about volleyball, in particular, the need to focus on women in volleyball, women and girls in volleyball, we need to begin to question the status quo, because that is part of breaking barriers and becoming a change agent. So I hope, Ms. Klute, that beyond this evening's webinar, that we will continue to break down these barriers and become change agents in our own small ways. So why am I sharing this with you? It's very simple. We need to stop tolerating that which does not take us forward, that does not bring excellence. And unless we begin to knock down those doors that have become the barriers over years, things will stay the same. However, these barriers that exist are not unique to volleyball. In fact, if you look around you, newspapers, social media, television, South African sport is in a mess. And we need to begin to understand why. So I'm going to share at least 3 barriers, in my opinion, that are holding us back as South Africans to become even better, to become excellent. Number 1, structural barriers. And this is as a result of our current governance system. The way we decide to elect our leadership, popularity contest, the person who speaks the most, the loudest, well, sometimes that can become me in the meeting. We cannot continue to do this if we don't begin to understand what is necessary to change the business of sport in South Africa. We will continue to vote for the same people, because guess what? Sometimes this is a group of people who believe that the sport owes them. Material barriers. Now, if you don't fix the leadership, if you don't have an accountable leadership, you will not be able to access resources. And it's not just about funding. It's not just about money. It's not about cash. I believe that within the volleyball fraternity, we have a wealth of knowledge and experience. And yet, in the National Executive Committee, in my opinion, they are not tapping into what is available within the volleyball fraternity. There are mental barriers that we need to break down because this limits our belief and it stops us from excellence as well as being successful. When last did we send a youth team to go and compete internationally? When last did we have a good camp? When last did we have good mass participation programs, except for the Volley for Hope activities that's happening? When last did we have a gathering such as this where we talk openly, honestly about women and girls in sport? And in fact, that the numbers have faded a very, very long time ago. I'd like to share the following 2 quotes with you. You should never view your challenges as a disadvantage. Instead, it's important for you to understand that your experience facing and overcoming adversity is actually one of your biggest advantages. Michelle Obama. An eye for an eye only ends up making the whole world blind. Mahatma Gandhi. 2 very different quotes, but yet it speaks about how can we break down barriers. I also believe that we can be change agents in our own ways. So what is a change agent? We take it for granted perhaps that we know what a change agent is and we think we need to change the world. But it's simply a person that either within your organization or outside of your organization that makes the difference and help that organization to transform in how it operates. They can be thought, change agents can be thought of as catalysts for change, a person who can make changes happen, even by inspiring and influencing others. And Ms. Jappi has just indicated what she does to inspire and to influence the lives of others. And that's why I said that in our own way, we can make a difference, we can be change agents. So I hope that after tonight's webinar, we will all become change agents for the advancement of women and girls in volleyball. Considering what's happening in our country, I believe that we are not making sure that the people who are able to break down the barriers, people who are able to be change agents, are not being given the opportunity to lead our sport. Instead, people are okay to be happy with a comfortable space. They want to retain the status quo, at least for some generations. And I believe what we need is transformational leadership. Transformational leadership are people who are willing to work with teams, that they need to bring the change. A transformational leader creates a vision, and this vision they guide through inspiration, and they execute the various changes in tandem with the committed leadership, because you can't do things alone. You need a team of people to support you. Versus, of course, self-interest. Now, along your pathway, you're going to bump into people that might not support you, and it's okay. I mean, I've dealt with this for many, many years. I think it took me 4 years to eventually get a person out of the system that just simply did not support, first and foremost, a vision that was co-created and a vision that I had the responsibility for to lead. So sometimes you need to make the tough choices, because within the space of transformational leadership, you are given the opportunity to impart being a human and not just be the autocrat and ticking the boxes and working on deadlines, etc. And sometimes it's very difficult to bring that balance, but you have to do that as a transformational leadership, as part of being a transformational leader. So why do I consider breaking down barriers and being a change agent as important? So in the early 90s, my first job that I had at University of the Western Cape was not in the sport department, it was at the political science department. And I started as a secretary. I then decided I don't like this title, I'm going to rename myself as the office manager. Perhaps a fancier title. And I had an opportunity to engage with some very, very smart people. And during my time at the political science department, I felt the hunger to reach out and do things differently. And so what happened? I decided to keep my head down, equip myself, find mentors, coaches, surround myself with the people that believed in my dream. And the people include family, friends, colleagues. Move outside of your comfort zone and tap into the spaces that will make you feel uncomfortable. And these are other industries. Get to know, get to learn, and get to understand. Today, I hold the most senior position in higher education sport in South Africa. I'm the only person with a title called Chief Director. Now, this didn't happen by accident. The late Russell Botman appointed me at Stellenbosch University with a vision saying that we need a person with senior leadership. With it came responsibilities. And moving from University of the Western Cape to Stellenbosch University, you can imagine the culture shock that I experienced. But today I stand firm. Why? I kept my head down, surrounded myself with the right people, keep on asking the questions, don't back down. However, when you want to do that, be ready, have your own ammunition, and that is knowledge, facts, and call in the people that can assist you to move forward in life. I've been asked about what next, whether I want to take up the reins at the South African Sport Confederation and Olympic Committee, that you also know is going through a big mess, being the case for the last 18 months. And I said, nah, I need to focus on what's positive. And that means my commitment hasn't changed. Because if I move into a space that's challenging, how am I going to break down barriers? How am I going to be the change agent if I will constantly be surrounded by negativity? That's not good. I mean, that's not a good mix. And I hope that as I continue to operate in my own space or spaces, considering my involvement, that I will continue to break down the barriers. I will continue to be the change agent in my space and hopefully for South Africa and beyond, because I also believe that you don't necessarily have to hold a leadership position to make a difference and to be that change agent. Sport, and in particular volleyball, gave my career a very, very strong kickstart. And this I did by fulfilling various roles. And I was able to learn and grow. The late Estelle, Mark, I remembered when we used to have our meetings at the Cape Peninsula University of Technology. Gary Gabriel's leadership started to evolve. Sean, Sali, Lut, Yusuf, Yamin. And I'm looking at who is present this evening and I'm asking, so who's going to take up, who's going to become the next president of volleyball? And I'm going to leave you with that, because that is also about breaking down barriers and being a change, and the change that you would like to see. And through my time at volleyball, I spent a lot of time thinking about, what is it that I would like to achieve? I've never had a plan. People have a plan to say, I want to achieve this during that time, etc. I've never had a plan. I stuck with my approach, keeping my head down, learn, grow, find the people that will continue to make me feel uncomfortable in my own space. I'm very passionate about leadership and governance, because I believe if that is not what it's supposed to be, if that is not about excellence, everything in the organization will go wrong. So I'm calling in each and every one of you here present this evening, and of course post this evening, because this webinar recording will be shared, to continue to commit to the development of the game of volleyball through transformational leadership that will break down barriers, that will allow us to become to continue to be change agents, and if we're not, to become change agents, so that we continue to make the difference in our little spaces. This is needed, everybody, because if we don't, the game of volleyball will simply fade. The numbers of women and girls in sport, and in volleyball in particular, will fade. I am a living example of the power of sport and how it can change lives. And imagine the difference each and every one of us can make when we continue to invest the bit that we have, especially for women and girls. I'm going to end up with a quote as well by Mother Teresa. Be faithful in small things, because it is in them that your strength lies. And for us, ladies and gentlemen, this is volleyball. I thank you once again for listening to me. I thank once again the Federation for the opportunity. And I'm certainly looking forward to the rest of the evening, listening to the stories of the rest of our panelists. We haven't seen each other for a very, very long time, so I'm sure that I'll be hearing something new. So Ms. Klute, once again, thank you very much.
Wow, thank you, Ilam, for some thought-provoking points. Listening to you, sharing your story is always a learning opportunity for me, and I believe for all the ladies and even gentlemen that's joining the webinar tonight. Just some, I think, important points to remind the audience about as part of your address to us is the importance of continuing to break down barriers, of course. And you spoke of the different types of barriers that we need to break down. You also spoke about having the need to have the uncomfortable discussions, and it is not about trying to call out men, but it is conversations that needs to be heard. Our voices needs to be heard. You also told us we can't wait for others to change things, that indeed we must become the change agents, the change that we would want to see. We can't just talk about it. We must actually get busy and get involved with bringing about these changes. Then, of course, you schooled us a bit on transformational leadership and what it means to lead, to empower, and to support those that you supervise or that you manage. And also the responsibilities that come with occupying top positions like Chief Director of Sport for one of the top universities in the country. You also reminded us not to become sidetracked by negative issues, by negativity, but to keep pushing and bring about change, in our own ways. And lastly, you called upon us to get together and fight for the survival of our code, and to actually start after this webinar. But it shouldn't just be a talk shop here, but we actually need to, continue the conversations after the webinar. Thank you very much, Ilam. I'm sure that everybody enjoyed the speech tremendously. I think we can see from the chat, the notes in the chat box, that you definitely inspire a lot of us. Thank you, Ilam.
Thank you, Ms. Klute.
We will now begin our panel discussion. I assume that all of the invitees are in attendance. Ladies, I hope you are all here. I'm so sorry that we will not, of course, due to time constraints, be able to properly introduce each and every one of you. You all have lengthy profiles and wonderful achievements in your own rights, but unfortunately, we won't be able to read out 16 profiles tonight. Otherwise, we must be willing to be in the webinar until probably 12 o'clock tonight, right? So let's kick off our question sessions. Just a reminder again, if any questions for our speakers or the panelists, please drop it in the chat box, and then we will get to it at the question and answer sessions. And guys, I'm looking out for questions from you as well. So the first question, Nicolene, are you in? Nicolene Daniels?
Yes, Almin?
Ah, welcome. So Nicolene, you are currently a teacher at the Western Cape Sports School. You've been involved with volleyball for quite some time. I know you as the manager of, the Cranes team specifically. So my question to you is, when and where were you introduced to volleyball? And why are you still involved?
Right. 11 years ago, I started at the Western Cape Sports School. And that was my very first introduction to volleyball. Coach Almin, you were presently, you were the coach then at the school. And I always enjoyed watching the players, starting at grade 8, and watch them develop tremendously over the years. And some of our players eventually reached, and they're still currently playing in the national team. So that was my reason for staying on, to see the development in the players. Right, and my role also is I think we all experience the same challenges in the communities. I think youngsters, we, besides the normal roles that we as managers do, booking venues, getting the transport ready, getting meals, there are so much more things that we need, that our role is as a manager. We need to support the players. And yeah, there are so many other barriers that they experience. Yeah, thank you, Almin.
Thank you, Nikki. Nadia Anhuisen, Ms. Anhuisen, you are a teacher at Zeekoevlei High, correct? And you also coach. Right.
Yes.
The question to you is, what would you like to see happen more at school level for girls volleyball?
I think good evening, Almin and Yusuf. Thank you for considering me to be part of this panel. Gee whiz, you'd asked me the question about when I started. It was in the 80s, believe it or not. So I've been around forever, and always when I see an old player, they ask me, are you still involved in volleyball? And they are quite bemused about it. But what I would like to see is more involvement of teachers actually coaching players, especially girls. Now, people who know me and coaches who know me, I will always advocate that they need to focus on the girls. When I started out in the 1990s, I taught in Somerset West. So I commuted from Grassy Park to Somerset West. And my endeavor and my vision at that time was to make sure that female players were developed, because often the coaches would only focus on the male players. And that is the vision and the guidance that I've given to many coaches throughout the decades that I've been involved in volleyball. People have mentioned Estelle Williams. What an amazing woman. I don't think people realize the value that she has brought to the code. Now, as educators, we need to be in local parentis. And I want to remind people who get involved in the code, you need to have a vision about what you want to achieve. We are not just dealing with, as Ms. Jappi said, with girls, but we are dealing with human beings. And these human beings, I would like people to consider, you don't teach them just to be a better player. You teach them to be a better woman and a better human being. And so when they leave you, they have become better human beings who are going to fill the place or their places in society at a later stage. I would really like more and more teachers, more and more players to be involved on the ground, because that is really where the challenges lie. Now, contrary to the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, we have even greater social challenges in our communities. I remember in the past, we could easily go and play at wherever location. These days, we have to consider the social problems of gangsterism. Is it safe there? I would like to see coaches identifying players, teachers becoming involved, because Nicolene would surely notice that at many schools, the teachers are not as involved as they used to be. Now, I spoke about in local parentis, and teachers also need to make sure that they take care of these girls. Now, when I started out, I don't know if you remember Zandy Erasmus. This was a player at Gordon High School. I think she eventually made the national team and captained the national team as well. And eventually she landed up with Mark and Estelle Williams. And that was, for me, was always the link that I tried to make to get more and more players to gravitate towards the clubs so that there is a stronger base there. Why did I send them to those individuals? Because I knew that they were going to look after my girls as if it were their own children. And therefore, even up until today, you know, we need to say they've done amazing things in the Lotus River area. They initiated the start or the formation of the Lions Volleyball Club, which otherwise would never have happened. And so when teachers become involved, it is a matter of developing those individuals to go on to greater things. I mean, we have a broad base of young women in their mid-30s, their mid-20s, and they've been lost to volleyball. There are so many of them. Why haven't they moved on to the clubs from that level and that foundation that has been provided for them? And so we need to look at whatever platforms there are so that there is going to be a natural ascension for these young women and for any player for that matter. And volleyball is dying. I agree with Ilham. It is dying. And that is my greatest cause for concern. That we have too little involvement on the ground for various reasons. There is that absence of a lack of vision. Our focus needs to be sport as holistic development so that when, you know, our children are given the opportunities to develop, how many of these players have never been academically inclined? Yet we provided an opportunity for them to excel. And so it is about building self-esteem. It's about building confident individuals. And our children need this so much. So ultimately then for me, those are the challenges. And thank you for raising the things that we need to have those uncomfortable decisions. We need to see where do we fit into this whole scheme of things. Where can we move from here? For myself, you know, I'm moving on in years. And unlike Estelle, who was still on, and I'm amazed that this woman was still on a volleyball court in this year. And for myself, my role, as I see it, is to mentor other coaches, whether it be male or female coaches, to make sure that we can entrust our children to them. Because if my child plays volleyball, I want to know that in whichever hands I entrust her, they will nurture her. They will look after her and make sure that she is safe. And ultimately so that she can take, you know, progress and naturally take her place in society as a strong woman who is not afraid to speak out, to take charge. We mustn't wait for anybody to say, yes, we don't have, you know, we have complained, sorry about that, we don't have resources. Goodness me, man, take charge. Get one ball. Create a ball out of paper. At my school, people know we have limited resources. We don't have a wall. And if we don't get the sick, we play outside in the wind. If we have one ball for 15 players, it doesn't matter. Take the opportunity, grab it, and allow the learners to explore themselves. So my ultimate message is, and hopefully there are people out there, please make sure that you just get these children to play. We cannot afford for this beautiful code to die. Thank you.
Wow, Nadia, thank you. Wow. Listening to you, you can see the passion and love that you have for the volleyball and for the kids. And also just thank you for staying involved and keep on encouraging specifically the girls. I know you take care of the boys also, but thank you for what you're doing for the sport. We now move on to Nuran. Are you around?
Hi.
Hi, Nuran. Nuran, you're currently serving on the Cape Town Volleyball Federation as the secretary. Do you think that we have made good strides as far as the involvement of women in leadership positions are concerned?
Good evening, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. I would like to think that we have made good strides, but unfortunately, we're not even close. And to be honest, we still have a very long way to go. The lack of female leaders in general, and especially also in volleyball, is one of the most highly discussed challenges. We need to make it a priority to try and develop more female leaders, administrators, and role models. It is shown that with more female leaders at the head, the more profitable the establishment becomes. It also shows that women are typically rated as more effective leaders overall than men. And this is generally by their peers and the managers. I mean, things are always better from a female perspective. I'm sure the panel will agree. So how do we tackle this? We need to start recognizing the potential of our females. Look at females that show interest in wanting to become more than just a player at a club, maybe wanting to learn and be committed in wanting to become a coach, a team manager, or even a chairman. It's important for us not to judge by the mistakes. We have to learn from them. We need to identify females who has top leadership qualities within our volleyball fraternity. Some will be better coaches than others. Some will show better administrative skills than others. We need to help and support them and help them in becoming better in the field they choose. It is also not going to help if they have all the skills, but they are not given a chance to show their capabilities. So we need to put them into these roles to see whether they are flourishing and to assist if they make mistakes. And by doing this, we'll even more develop the leadership skills. We have to show them to be bold, to proactively manage their own career, not to wait to be seen. They have to present themselves and they have to dare to be different. Thank you, Alwyn.
Thank you, Nurand. Well put there. And we'll swap over to, you spoke of leadership positions specifically in the different spheres of volleyball. Tanya, Mrs. Lewis, the next one is for you. Mrs. Lewis, are you in?
I am, yes, thank
Okay.
you.
Hi there, Mrs. Lewis.
Hi.
You are the first South African female to have obtained an FIVB level referee status. Am I correct? Let me just check my facts.
Almin, you're correct, yes.
Okay,
in terms of, accredited international referee, yes.
Oh, fantastic, man. We, you know, as a close friend, I'm very proud of you. Describe your journey to us and perhaps your thoughts on how we can address gender stereotypes and break down barriers within the sport.
Almin, as you well know, my journey with volleyball started many, many years back. So I have transcended a lot of different roles within volleyball. I can probably with Ms. Ilam Groenewald, I can attest to being served at a national level. I've been involved at coaching and just as a player. So my passion for volleyball started very early on in my life, and I continue to drive that. That's always been part of who I am, and also my family, as you well know, and my teams. So I have a very great affinity for the sport, and I will continue to have that. So the challenges are still very much, as we know, our sport has been around for many centuries. But yet, just to maybe share a fact with you, just so that you know, from my perspective, I am now an international referee, so I do concentrate my efforts in encouraging girls and women in that space. But it was encouraging to see the FIVB nominating for the first time in the modern sport of volleyball at the last Olympics, 2016, where they actually for the first time nominated 2 female referees to to referee the finals of the women's gold medal match. It was so it was an achievement, but if you think about it, we have a sport that's over 120 years old, and for the first time in its history, it actually acknowledges that female are as equally equipped and skilled to be able to represent the sport at that level. So it's still a discourse that has to be discussed. It has to be continually to be discussed so that we can ensure that we get this platform on a continuous basis. But it must start from the top. It must start from the international federation. It must filter down to the continental federations, and it must filter down to the national federations. We need to have the champions there. We need to have the drivers that can drive the policies, that can actually drive transformation in the sport. If we don't have that, then we're going to continue having this discussion about how do we empower women. I was actually executive director of women in sport at Volleyball South Africa, and I can attest to many of our women in the boardrooms that it becomes a token. It becomes a token position, right? And we're there because we have to represent, not necessarily make an impact. So I'm hoping to see in the future that a lot of our girls and women at grassroots level that have the potential, that have the ability to take up these positions, that they actually do take up these positions. In my space, for instance, as a referee, I know it's very hard because I know where we all started. I know in the beginnings, you know, it was difficult for women to take up the whistle because they always felt that they're either going to be disrespected or they will be manipulated by our male colleagues, and so our male teammates. So I'm always wanting to say to women that, you know who you are, believe in your ability, you know, and push through, because the job has to be done. And if we stop the discourse, we're never going to push forward, empowering our women and ensuring that we actually reach those leadership positions for the future. And we have to pave the way for the future. We need to ensure that we are there. We need to ensure that we step forward and not stand behind in the background, and make our voices heard. So from my perspective, I've been quite, I have had different opportunities, but I think for most part, the discussion still needs to happen at various platforms, even at school level. The girl child is important that she is encouraged, that she has the safe space to be able to do so. And we know we are faced with gender-based violence. It's difficult for any woman in today's society to actually step up, but we must ensure we still have those platforms and dedicated programs for our girls, dedicated referees courses for women, for coaching, for administration. Because if we leave it at that, we will never ever really make inroads into making sure that we empower our girls and our women. So I think that discussion, that platform needs to be continually put on the table, continually challenged. And I hope that this is the start to many other discussions around the issues of women in sport. So I would like to say thank you. It's been, I'm still interested to see what the other ladies have to say. It's quite nice to see the other ladies at this point in time. So hopefully we can have a further discussion later.
Thank you, Mrs. Lewis, for committing yourself to bringing about change within the referee space for the girl child and for women. Some inspiring thoughts you shared with us there. Ms. Khadija Japi, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Khadi.
Hello, everyone.
Good to see you. Good to see you. You were of course, and proudly so, from our side, appointed the beach volleyball team coach. That for Team South Africa, it was due to travel to, or at least trying to qualify for the Olympics, which is now going to take place in 2021. So just please let us know, do you think that there is a difference between coaching males and females?
First of all, I'm really chuffed. I think it's the first time that a woman has been selected to coach a male's SA team. And initially it was a bit of a surprise, I won't lie. And I thought about it for a while, and I thought, I haven't really coached men at that level. And then I sat and I thought about it, and all of the things, or a lot of the things that have been spoken about by these other amazing women came to my mind. I have the experience. I'm just as good a coach as any of the other men. I've got the qualifications. I've got the experience, and so I grabbed it with both hands, whether I had the experience with men or not. I knew I had it in me to learn as I go, and to, Ilham was talking about skilling yourself up, getting the information that you need, and so that's what I've done. So I've taken on the boys, and I think there is a difference coaching men and women, but I think it's just general things we know, like ego and testosterone, and sometimes there's a bit of I know more than you, or I know, but I have to say and be fair to the men that I have four guys, 2 teams. They've really been quite welcoming. I've put myself out there. I've asked them for training programs. As you know, with COVID, it stopped us in our tracks. We had started our training program, and we've had training camps scheduled, but then unfortunately we couldn't get anywhere. So I'm in touch with them, and I know what they're doing. And obviously with women, I feel a bit more comfortable. I won't lie. I feel a bit more comfortable with the women, but like Ilham said, put yourself in uncomfortable spaces. And of course, it's a tough one for me. I'm a Muslim woman, and I'm coaching a male's team, so there's a lot of dynamics to consider there. But at the same time, it doesn't take away from my ability to do it. And I also want to just touch on a few things that my colleagues were saying, such powerful things about gender stereotypes, and whether we've made real strides. And I think those strides are sporadic. We have an appointment here and there of a woman in VSA. And, Tanya, I have to say, you're absolutely right about it being a token position. And I feel that. And I think it is true. And I don't think that we have enough positions. There's sometimes there's obviously strength in numbers, otherwise you're just a female in the room saying whatever you say. And I actually think that the structures need to change. Elmine, I know I digress a little bit from the beach volleyball coaching thing. But I just wanted to kind of put it out there, that I feel like, it's not a secret. If you look at the executive of Volleyball South Africa, it's mostly male. Maybe there's 1 or 2 females around occupying these positions. And even in Western Province executive too, there's 1 or 2 females there. And then when we do get the roles, it is women in sport. It is the secretary, I know at some point we had 2 vice presidents, not sure if that's still happening. But one of it had to be a female. I fail to see why that had to be so clearly enforced, because they know, I feel like the structures need to change. Constitutions need to change. Often that word is being thrown around, yeah, but that's in the constitution, how people get voted in over and over again, how there's sometimes autocratic leadership styles that you just can't fight to do anything about, you feel powerless about. And if I could have a wish, I would change the constitution to insist on a 50% female executive. It's just got to be half. You've got to find the women. And having said that, we have to have mentorship programs. We have to collaborate as women. You know, I worry that we have these forums and we just don't take it forward. We don't move forward with it. I don't want us to be seen as having cake and tea and talking, you know, having a girls' day out. We've got to take it forward. We've got to have mentorship programs. And we do have a lot of women in volleyball are professionals. They are biokineticists, they are sports scientists, they are teachers, you know, they are leaders, they are managers, they are owners of companies. I myself a director of a female owned company. And so that means we have got the leadership skills, you know, besides the fact that we raise families, we are mothers, we are teachers, you know, by nature, we're collaborators. And these are the things that must come in to our structures, you know. So another thing I would probably do is have, you know, how you have job shadowing, because often people, they will say these women are not experienced or she doesn't have the experience, but how do you gain that if you can't even get your foot in the door, you know? So I think we need to start with having a real, and I love the fact that we're having this conversation, and maybe I'm going a bit over my time, waffling a little bit, but I really love the fact that we're having this conversation. And I hope from here, we will be able to, as women, get together and say, we need space on this executive. You know, we don't just want people to be handpicked, or no, we want people who are qualified. I mean, a sports management degree is like you need to go to university for 3 years, you know, but we just put people in those positions. You know what I'm saying? And coaches, not everybody can coach. Sometimes we have males in those positions who were good players. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're good coaches. So the list is endless, you know, but that's just my 2 cents worth. I think we need to have mentorship programs. I think at school level also we need to encourage girls. Often we just look for players, but we've also got to look for administrators. We've got to make it such that they want to get involved in the sport. And I think the sport is dying because a lot of us still just do it for the love of the game. It's not because we want to be associated with this organization, because we love the way that things are done, you know. And so I think that's got to change. But I think we are making strides. I think there shouldn't really be a difference in coaching men and women. Just to come back to your question, there shouldn't be a difference. You know, you have the same work ethic, you have the same discipline that's required. You know, it's just agenda. It's just agenda. So that's me. Thanks, Almin, for the opportunity.
No, thank you for again. Also, I love the fact, you know, that everybody shares passionately about it. Just shows how we all care about the sport, and that we don't want to see it die, and we want to be heard as women and to begin to occupy more spaces. I want to go over to the players so that they don't think that we are forgetting them, and at the risk of running out of time. And Yusuf, I hope that we can, we will be allowed to go slightly over 9 o'clock, or even a little bit more, as I think, you know, these conversations are necessary for us, and I hope the participants will stay logged in too, just for the extra time. You know, it's going to be a 5-setter tonight, with a lot going up to, you know, 30 points and so on. So the first question probably, Sandra and Hadi touched on the fact that we have families. We are mothers, we are wives, we have kids, we have jobs. So how do you balance your life as a mother, wife, a sportswoman, a woman with a full-time job? Because you are so active on the socials with your training program. So how do you do all of this?
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. I mean, thank you very much for this opportunity. It's a tough one. However, you have to make it work. And I wake up every morning and I just tell myself, listen, we all have 24 hours for the day. So what are you going to do? You know, so I get up a bit earlier, so that I can go run at 4:30, be home at 5:30, making sure the kids' bags are packed, and then I grab the bags, and then we normally, before lockdown, we would leave at 6. I've got a 9-hour job, and I'm also in the technical field, so it takes a lot out of you. You come back home, and then you see the homework, and it's the kids' extra activities as well. But I think for me, what works for me is the fact that I'm married to a volleyball player. So that really helps a lot. I'm married to a person that supports me. So when I get home, and then we would start to say, listen, what's the plan for today? What are we going to do? It's volleyball for you. It's volleyball for me tonight. So then I go, I see to the children, or he goes and I see to the children. So it's really about balancing it out and having communication with your partner. And also, sometimes I come home from volleyball late. My husband will still wait for me, and then I will just start cooking and preparing for the next day. So that is what's currently working for me. And like you said, it's just about balancing it out. So that's for me. Thank you, Alvin.
Thank you, Sandra. We just for the audience. Sandra is a former South African player and part of the Cranes team. Sheena, are you still with us? I've seen you.
Yes, I am. I'm here.
Hi, Sheena. Sheena is also a former SA player. I'm not even sure if I should call ladies former players or former SA players, because who knows, you might still be selected for the senior team. I don't know in how many years, guys. So I can't promise that. Sheena, you've also recently been appointed director of Volleyball Volleyball. That was I really was so excited to see that. But my question though to you is around the media. The media plays a huge role in giving the sport exposure. We are a long way, of course, from that as volleyball. How can we all ensure that we make girls and women aware about taking up volleyball? And especially from the point that you are an influencer.
Influencer, that's a strong word. I don't know about that. Almin, firstly, thank you so much for having me tonight. It's really an honor, and I just want to say, coming into this talk, I wasn't too sure what the tone would be of the conversation, but wow, Ilam, you really set the platform and really opened up the discussions and really made it okay to have these uncomfortable conversations, because we never know what, we come into these talks a lot of the time as females, we want to tiptoe around certain things, but I really want to thank you for opening up the platform and really making it okay to be open and honest. And I think that's so important to, number one, as Ilam alluded to be a change agent, and especially with inspiring girls and around media. I know when I played, and when I was playing in the national team at quite a level, to get any media exposure, to get any sort of sponsorship, there was no, as Khadi said, mentorship is so important, because you had no one to mentor you on how do you get all of this going. Sometimes it's a lot easier for the guys. They're getting assistance. They've been helping to put proposals together, and sometimes as the female volleyball players, you don't always have that, and so I really had to go out on my own and really make it happen and learn for myself, and so I think to inspire these girls and the females within volleyball, it all comes down to mentorship, creating these platforms, more platforms like these, where we can help females to build the presence within volleyball, so that the sport, especially amongst females, doesn't die. As Ilam said, we've seen these numbers decrease, and it's so important for us to start creating these structures and to build the females up to continue in sport, giving them mentorship programs, teaching them different values, and just having a proper structure in place, because I think eventually over time, that's how we are losing players. So how do we encourage players when we don't have even a proper foundation to show them? It's like in a career, if I don't have a career path, how do I see a positive light out of that? So it's very difficult to answer that sort of question, because in order to show someone growth, you need to show them the path that there's going to be growth with them. Otherwise, there's motivation in the beginning, but it's going to die out pretty fast and quick. I hope that answers the question.
No, thank you for that. But I just wanted to let you know that just by way of using social media in the way that you guys have been using it, that do inspire. So sometimes, although it sounds, or it can become a little bit negative and you guys are a little bit down in the dumps, it does inspire the youngsters to have role models, like you guys. Anita, the next one is for you.
Hi.
FIVB rules have changed in recent years around beach volleyball playing attire for specifically females. Do you think that this was a good change, and why do you think so?
Hi, thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this. It's really great to just be involved with such wonderful women. So about the beach volleyball attire, I think this was an important change that had to take place. So the change happened when the Olympics was held in London, and that was due to the weather. And, the perception has always been before that the reason why females beach volleyball is such a watched game is because of what they wear. What was such an encouraging thing to see was that year, there was no drop in spectatorship for the female participants. So whilst I'm sure many people watch it for what the girls are wearing and the bikinis, that is not what those athletes are trying to achieve. And I think that was a really positive and very important thing to see and to note, because it disrespects their hard work and their talent by saying that that's the reason why they are being watched. I also think that South Africa went through a phase a very long time ago where we were sticking with the same standards of having to wear bikinis to play in. And a lot of girls just felt that they didn't want to do that for whatever reason. I think that South African females are fairly conservative in comparison to some other nations. So we had very low participation. And I think it was a good decision in South Africa to start saying, wear what makes you comfortable. I actually, when I started playing a little bit more seriously in beach volleyball, I played with Khadija, and we met through indoor volleyball, and she said, okay, I'll play a tournament, but let's see what I'm allowed to wear. So even to be allowed in South Africa to wear slightly different clothing has been important. And when we participated for FIVB, being able to wear attire that covers up, it's not always easy because it's hot. But it makes such a difference because now anybody can participate. And it's encouraging to see this. The last thing that you want to do is while you play to just feel self-conscious all the time. And unfortunately in South Africa, we are not professional players. So as much as we try, we're just not going to be at the same fitness level and often not look the same as some of these women that are doing this for their whole day. So it's encouraging to see that they're opening that up and branching out and allowing us to be us and not forcing us to be to look a certain way and to be uncomfortable when we're playing. So I think this is a very, very important step for female sport. And I look forward to them allowing even more changes within beach volleyball where, if people want to wear something a little bit looser, it can be looser. But it's been a very important change, I believe.
Well, Anita, thank you for that for that answer. I think you put it perfectly, and it definitely answered the question. And I agree with you. We have fairly traditional, and our cultures are differently in South Africa, and not just South Africa for that matter. Which the rules can have such a great impact on the growth of the sport just by having more girls take up beach volleyball now, because then they can play in their tights, they can play in their shorts for that matter. They can wear long sleeve if they want, and so on. So you're absolutely correct. Bianca Della,
and just to add to
that you can.
Just to add to that, I think young girls going through very self-conscious times, teenage years, it now encourages them that they can move forward in beach volleyball without worrying about what they're going to have to wear should they succeed. So that's a positive for our young girls.
Absolutely, absolutely. Ms. Della?
Yes, I'm here.
The question to you, as I think currently the only student volleyball player here in the group, what are the challenges of a student athlete, and what advice do you have for prospective players who wants to balance the academic and volleyball career?
Well, being a student athlete is both a challenge and an opportunity to develop one's leadership skills. Balance is crucial for any student athlete because competitive sports and academics work side by side. That's why it's very important for students to also take part in sports. Like I said, balance, which is also part of the challenges, is a real challenge because having an education is crucial to a young athlete's life. And also, I've come to realize that it is important as a student athlete to give my best in both my studies and in competitions. But for this, preparation is also key. One needs to be organization and discipline to a student athlete's life. The success of a student athlete comes down to one's ability to manage one's own time efficiently with the social life and academics and sports. The balance and discipline and organizations are one of the pillars for a student athlete. And I think that's one of the things that kickstarted my career as a volleyball player and also achieving so much in my academics. Thank you.
Thank you, Bianca, for that. Bianca, of course, also a national team player, avid beach volleyball player, and you know, inspiring the youth with the other ladies. So thank you, Bianca. I want to move, and I think and I apologize to our panelists specifically. Unfortunately, we won't have time to get to all the questions that I had planned to ask. But I want to just acknowledge the ladies from Cape Winelands specifically. And Abigail, if you are around, I'd like you to just answer a question quickly. Abigail, are you here? Are you still with us?
Hi, Almin, I'm here.
Thank you, Abigail. I'm going to ask you about the challenges that you guys face in specifically of the Cape Winelands area. Of course, we know Cape Winelands and our other districts are more rural areas. So how would you explain to us, or what challenges do you guys, what's the kind of challenges that you guys face in trying to grow volleyball?
Thanks for having me tonight, Almin. I'm a little bit nervous, but Cape Winelands is a fairly new union. The people around here, or the kids around here, they don't know volleyball. We need to introduce volleyball to them. We need to create an awareness around volleyball in order to get the potential that we have here in our community. I know our teachers, they have their own challenges and they can't always do what they want to do with volleyball at school. When we went to school, all the sports codes was there. You could just pick and choose. But nowadays, when they see a volleyball, they think it's a soccer ball. Oh, the kids here in our area. So it would be very nice if maybe the federation could come through to Worcester. It's not that far, 150 kilometers out. You just get on the N1 and through the tunnel, and come have a few clinics here in Worcester, just to introduce our kids and to show them that there's something better. It's not just the gangsterism that we face, the poverty in our communities, the substance abuse, the teenage pregnancies. We need to give our kids an alternative. And I believe that volleyball can provide that.
Thank you for that, Abigail. I'm going to ask a last question before we just look at what the questions to address the questions in the chat, and I'm going to ask Yusuf to just help with that. But before we get there, Paulette, are you with us?
Hi, yes, I am.
Hi, Paulette. Thanks, man. I think it is an important question, just to ask within the space that you are in. Of course, you are the newly founded Lavender Hill Volleyball Club's secretary, but I wanted, and you assist with the coaching there. I wanted to ask or to share with us what the girls and women in that specific area, what they deal with on a day-to-day basis and maybe face on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, so most of them, what they face on a day-to-day basis is things that we can't even comprehend because it doesn't even happen to us. Okay, so you have your mother that's an alcohol, or your father's on drugs, or your brother belongs to a gang, stuff like that. So when they come to volleyball, that's their getaway from that. Yeah? So those are all things we have to take into consideration. You can't speak to them whichever way you feel like it. So those are all things you need to take into consideration when you address them. And when you work with them, you must work with them the way you would work with your own kids. So you can't just go in there and bulldoze them because then they're not going to participate. They wouldn't want to do anything and they wouldn't want to learn anything. So those are like some of the challenges we face. Unfortunately, with COVID, those are the things we wanted to deal with this season, to break them out of the mold, some of them a bit more, but unfortunately now we couldn't do that. So hopefully in the new year, when the season does start and we do get to see them again, we can work on things like that again with them, mentor them so that they know there's always somebody there for them. Because I am not scared to go in and fetch them in Lavender, get them to training, get them to a game, and even go and take them back home again. So those are our challenges we face at times. And thank you for having me.
No, thank you, Paulette, for joining us. You know, we deliberately had a big panel. We do know, it's not that we don't know that having big panels on webinars is obviously you're going to have time issues and you will not be fair towards everyone. But we deliberately wanted to make sure that we have as many as possible women on the panel. And just to touch base with them and to hear their views. And of course, there's many more that's not currently here, but just to share with the audience that there is a strategy, and then there's sometimes there is what is it, precision in madness. So thank you guys for staying in and for staying tuned in and for giving the ladies a platform and for allowing them to speak about some of the things that they go through and the advice that we got from our women in volleyball. It was incredible to listen to fellow coaches, to friends, to players, and Khadi was saying that it shouldn't be, and I agree, of course, most of us agree, it shouldn't be another talk show, and hopefully we can pinpoint down some important issues, and of course, the objective is to take this forward. So I write some of the questions as
things are not going to change for us. Corporates are not interested in volleyball. Corporates are not interested in sport. Why? Because our leadership is a failure. So there are so many layers that hold us back, and I've shared some of these barriers. So I think in volleyball, I think what has been a very successful concept is the Volley for Hope festivals. I saw a comment, I think it's from Debbie, who spoke about the importance of mass participation and the need for us to reach out and help each other. And Worcester, 150 kilometers is not that far. This is some of the things that we need to take up. But Worcester is far for some people because people maybe don't have the money to put in fuel in the car. So I think layers of solutions. However, if you look at what we need to achieve, at the end of the day, it's about money.
Thank you, Ilham, for that answer and for sharing some extra points there. I think, ladies and gentlemen, that I've noted comments about extending the sessions and so on. Of course, our host is noting these comments, and we will of course speak about it. I agree. It's important that we keep on talking about this, but at the end of the day, we need to see results, and the results will be in more women taking up leadership positions at all spheres, and of course, more importantly, and a personal passion for me is to see more girls taking up volleyball, and for us to grow the numbers. So with that, I think we've come to the end of the session. But just before I hand over to Yusuf for final words and speaking about the next week's webinar, I want to hand over to Nicolene to just read a very nice poem to all of us. So just please, 3 to 5 or 3 more minutes of your time. Nicolene?
Can you hear me, Almeen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. In the midst of your family guessing, you came out as a blessing, while most of your relatives wanted you to be he. You were made with the grace of Almighty, a proud she. Accepted as a little princess, your room was poured with the color pink, sadly beyond these stereotypical things your parents couldn't think. Playing with dolls, listening to the stories of stars, little did anyone know that you also liked smashing those cars. The social norms taught you to be sensitive, soft, and fragile. But thankfully, social media made you bold, strong, and agile. Be polite. Sit with grace. You were asked to fit in the frame. But the global women leaders out there showed you how to ace the game. From ignoring that creepy, unwanted chase to fighting with that annoying male gaze. Every day has been a war. But you, my darling, are still shining bright like a star. Getting over your insecurities and doubts took you so many years. Finally realized that your confidence is much greater than your fears. People kept mocking you, saying women can't drive. Still, besides all this, your spirit continued to strive. You were subconsciously forced to follow that stupid standard beauty trend. Look fair and flawless, or the world's going to end. Today, laughing at all this fuss, you realize that beauty exists in all of us. The story of your success is still halfway. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicolene. I definitely love that poem so much. And with that, I am handing over to Yusuf to say to deal with thank yous and just announcement for future webinars.
Thank you, Elmine. I think first of all, we must applaud Elmine for taking the initiative to put this together, and all the panelists as well, for participation this evening, and of course as well the guest speaker Rahma Japi and also Ilan Groenewald for the very inspirational speeches they have made this evening. We salute all the ladies. We don't have a lot of time left. In fact, we're way over time. It's kind of testimony to the fact that this discussion is much needed. And I think there's some comments in the chat as well about, not everyone getting a fair chance to speak. But I mean, I think in hindsight, we will probably organize it a bit better in terms of, how many participants we actually get on the panel. And then perhaps over the next ensuing weeks, we then distribute accordingly. Okay. So having said that, just a thank you also again to the Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport for collaborating with us on these webinars. This is the 10th webinar now. Next week, we we are looking at drugs in sport with Dr. Gary Gales, that's well known across the province. He will be speaking to us about drugs in sport. We will also look at our 6th basic skill acquisition, and that will be presented by none other than Salih Fakir as well. Yeah, I think that's about it from my side in terms of the thank yous. Again, from Western Cape Volleyball Association, we would like to thank each and everyone that participated this evening, obviously including everyone across the African continent as well. I think we had people from Uganda, we had people from Dubai tuning in this evening. Thank you for everyone participating, of course our local people as well from Cape Town and across South Africa. Your continued involvement in volleyball is much needed, and you know, I think just, you know, if we kind of hold hands together going forward, we can really take this sport to the next level in this province, and in that way create opportunities for everyone that is involved in this particular sport. I think it all starts with the sincerity in the heart, and then from there everything will flow out with passion alongside that as well. Yeah, so on that note, I say thank you again to everyone. And I think perhaps now with discussions with the team, including Almina, of course, we will see at how we're gonna take this forward, because this surely shouldn't be the last of this kind of discussion. I think we've made history this evening as well. Of all the webinars, this is definitely the most attendance we've had. I think it's
well done.
So I think every week we need to you know, organize some aspect of women in the sport, and I think we'll get more people to attend these sessions as well. Yeah, but I think also on that note, I think, you know, everyone that has been participating this evening, just to perhaps continue supporting the growth of volleyball, you know, going forward. Under these conditions currently, obviously this is the only way, or the best way at the moment, that we can communicate with each other and stay in contact. Yeah, so love and leave you there. I hope to see you again next week, guys, when we chat to Dr. Gary Gables and Salih Fakir on the 2 topics they will present. Thank you, keep well, take care, stay safe, and see you again.
Thank you, Yusuf. Goodbye. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Be awesome.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye, Tanya.
Miss Lewis, we're waiting for the coffee invitation.
Of course, soon,
Okay.
definitely. I've got a birthday coming up. Well done. It was very
Right, it was
inspirational.
really awesome.
Yes, it was. And I think we
Yeah,
need
we
to have
must
more of this
continue this.
discussion.
Yep, yeah.
Definitely. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Good night. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Mrs. Lewis. Hi,
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum, Khadija from Uganda.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, shukran.
Beautiful conversation and very inspirational for us in Uganda. I believe we'll pick quite a lot from it, and looking forward to many, many more.
Yes, absolutely. I visited your country a few years ago, and yeah, it was amazing.
When was that?
My good friend, I'll tell you now, it was in 2012, I think. No, I'm lying. 2009.
Okay.
So my good friend Penny, she serves on the International University Federation.
Yes,
you know her?
I work with her on the Women in Sports in Uganda.
Beautiful.
Yes, and we were with her in Botswana for both the African Women Conference and also the International Working Group Conference.
That's right, yeah. I was somewhere overseas. I couldn't attend that conference. So, Yeah, no, we know each other for a very long time. So
Oh, that is very, very nice. She'll be
yes,
glad to
no,
know that. I will
she's my
let her
sister.
know.
Please, she's my
Yeah,
sister in university sport. But really, thank you very much for joining.
you're welcome. Thank you. I'm also glad to be here.
Yes, so let's stay in touch.
Yes, let's stay in touch, and I'll be following to find out which ones are going on for the next session.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Glad to meet
Shukran.
you.
Nice to meet
Volleyball
you
is my
too.
passion, and I think I'll do it in whatever capacity I can, as an FIVB level 2, as the first international volleyball referee in Sub-Saharan Africa, as the first female president in Uganda. So it's been a journey, and I've enjoyed people sharing their stories too.
Yes, Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
Now you have a beautiful story, so hopefully very soon we can
Alhamdulillah.
even listen to you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, take care.
Okay, take care too.
All right,
Bye-bye.
Assalamu alaikum. Okay.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum salam. Bye, everyone.